Thank you everyone for your patience. The next report we've got is a third report from the Corporate Director for Communities, and it's a update on the Porthcawl Grand Pavilion Levelling Up Fund project. Janine, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So the report that we have in front of you now is an update to you, Cabinet, on progress we've made and decisions that we've taken in relation to the design, procurement and programme of the Porthcawl Grand Pavilion project. We've brought a number of reports to you over the last 6-7 months. So this report seeks approval from Cabinet to a further suspension of the Council's CPR rules to allow Arwen to increase the fee for the commission between themselves and Purcell, which will cover the cost of design changes that we have done as part of a recent value engineering exercise. So I'll just give you a little bit of background, Leader, then I'll get into some of the meat of the report. So in January last year, 23, we were informed that we had that successful Levelling Up Fund bid for the Bridgend constituency, and then we were awarded just under 18 million, 17.99 million towards the redevelopment of the Grand Pavilion, that beautiful Grade 2 listed pavilion. It was to address the issues of risk to the building fabric, while also meeting the needs and aspirations of the local community, extending it, improving the arts and cultural spaces. We're going to have business and workshop opportunities, and also some welfare and functional spaces. It's worth noting here that there have been delays in progressing this project, not of our making at BCBC, because there were delays with the process from UK government from October 22 to May 23. That was a delay in receipt of monitoring guidance and delays in some of the decisions and the paperwork. And also there was documents that needed to be changed between rounds 1 and 2 of the funding. So it has been difficult to progress this project as we wanted to, because it would have been at risk to the council. So the current terms of the grant award, it's important to say, set out that the building will be complete by spring 2025. Now, we've had several conversations have taken place with the LEF monitoring team about extending that deadline, and we've had informal agreement now for the reprofile and the delivery and the finances up to March 2026. Now, I should say at this point, this is a national extension to March 2026. So anybody involved with LEF grants will have that extension. So we haven't had that written confirmation yet that the whole of this LEF is going to extend, but we will have that hopefully in the coming months. But in any event, we would not sign any construction contract until we had complete confirmation from Levelling Up that the fund would take us into March 26. We back in October 23, we approved the suspension. You as Cabinet approved the suspension of the contract procurement rules to allow Arwen to procure RIBA Stage 4 design for the Grand Pavilion from Purcell's, and we're now in a position where we are going to ask you to do that again, because Purcell's have undertaken quite a bit of additional work for us in order to re-engineer the project to make sure it was affordable. And we have to take into account the cost price inflation on the construction market since we initially put that design together. So lessons learned from the other major capital project that we've done in Maesteg. We know that really we need to go out to tender with a scheme that's affordable within the envelope. So we have been working with Purcell's to look at the building and to look at doing what we call value engineering. It's a really horrible word, but it's an exercise where we go back through all the components of that building and see what can be removed or adjusted without compromising the quality and the building that's left. So design amends and costs have now been reviewed and agreed by the programme board, and we've also discussed them in February of this year. There are no design changes that impact on the LEF approved outputs. That's really good. We've also submitted now these updated plans to planning, and they will be presented to a special development control committee on April the 29th of this year for the determination. Now, with regard to the procurement, we've got an invitation out currently for tender for an enabling works contract being advertised on Sell to Wales. This closed on the 8th of April, and we're hoping to start the enabling works contract on the 28th of May. Now, what that will allow us to do is to do extensive pre-contract surveys, and that will allow us to mitigate any unforeseen works before the main contract is awarded to avoid scope creep and cost increases. And this is all lessons learned from when we undertook the Maesteg Town Hall project. So what we are doing with this enabling contract is getting into the pavilion, stripping out, undertaking all detailed surveys in order that we can keep that cost at a proposed level. And this will also expedite the work within the main contract, actually, and it'll give us greater cost certainty. So in line with the authority CPRs, a tender process is also currently underway via ESPO framework agreement to procure a professional services contract. So we need a multidisciplinary project management team to support the works on the Grand Pavilion. We've also got a procurement subgroup that's been established, and that we're taking advice from our procurement department, legal officers, and also from an external project manager and also external legal advisors to determine what is the most appropriate programme and procurement route for the construction work contract. And the two options we're considering currently are a single stage design and design and build contract, or a two-stage traditional contract. Now, the cost consultants we're working with are called Focus, and they will be providing a report to us with the options and recommendations, and we will bring that back to you for you to see that. Now, we had to make in August 2023 last year and in October 23 a requirement to suspend the council CPRs in order that Arwen could procure Purcell to do the RIBA Stage 4 design. And that initial contract was for 750,000. But because we've undertaken this extensive review and value engineering exercise, we are now asking Cabinet, would you be happy to suspend the council CPRs for Arwen to pay Purcell's an additional cost of £80,418 for the additional work that they've done on the design changes. And what I would say here is this is all funded by LUF. It's not our money, it's part of the LUF grant, and it will be money very well spent if we ensure that this project can be delivered and feasible. What we wouldn't want to do is to go to tender with a building that we know costs more money than what we have in our budget. So this will ensure that the building is right sized, it's designed well, and that we can afford it itself. A couple of other things to note before we move on to recommendations, Leader. Governance. We've got external legal advisors appointed to give us information on subsidy control, and that's really important for us. And we have, in terms of communications, it was something that you were very keen that we progress, was a stakeholder group that was established. We had our first meeting back in February, and we'll continue to meet throughout the project. We've got neighbouring residents have also been engaged, and importantly, we've just commenced a dust monitoring survey, which will take place over a 13-week period to monitor air quality, and that will establish a baseline for us. So when the main construction contract is in place, we can monitor for any adverse impact for that going forward. So please may I take you to the recommendations, Leader, and in the main is to note the progress of the report, agree the further suspension of the CPRs so that we can pay Purcell's that additional monies for the work they've done, and note that we will come back to you before we award any main contract in due course, and we can tell you about the extension, hopefully, of the grant time frame from LUF, as well as the cost of that construction contract. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for this report. Really pleased to have it today and to read about the progress of this of this very, very exciting project for the county borough. Councillor Good is first, and then we've got the deputy leader. Please, Councillor Good.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Janine, for taking us through the report. I'm happy to move the report. While obviously I never like suspending these rules because they're there for a reason, I think it's understandable and I think prudent that we have taken this action and that Arwen have been looking at this in a way that is responsible to make sure that, as Janine says, we can deliver on this really excellent project that's going to have a transformative impact on not just on Porthcawl and the borough, but I think on the whole of South Wales. And I think, in a world which we've seen, as with other major projects such as the MyState Town Hall, where when you are in a world where things are very unpredictable, where things like pandemics and wars, etc., can increase costs and increase timeframes, I think it is very important that we learn lessons from that and that we take the steps we should take responsibly to make sure that these projects are deliverable on time and on budget. So, while it's unfortunate that we have had to have some reverse engineering done and look at what is possible to reduce costs in the pavilion, I'm still very confident that it's going to be an amazing building. I can't wait to see it finished, and so I'm more than happy to support this report, and I think the designs that we've seen from Purcell so far have been excellent, and I think this is a positive step forward, and I hope to see the work beginning soon. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Good. So next we've got the deputy leader, please.
Thanks very much, Leader, and thank you very much for the report, Janine. I just want to confirm that this is within the financial envelope. The environment that you're asking for today is within the financial element of that £20 million, roughly. And there is a reason, because I'm really happy to see this reverse engineering. I appreciate Councillor Good's comments, but considering all the challenges that we're facing in the fiscal climate, then the reality is any construction, any capital programme that we have is costing us more money, exponentially more money. So we need to ensure that we preserve the building and make it good, but I don't think we need to do bells and whistles, and whoever uses the building needs to do the bells and whistles as to how they want to use it going forward. Thanks very much, Leader, and I'm happy to second the report.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Jean, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, absolutely. The additional 80,500 that we've got in the report is available. It's part of the LUF funding, and we are well within the project envelope currently. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's pleasing to hear. So next we've got. Did you want to come in on this point? Was that a legacy hand? Okay, Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Leader. I noticed on page 298, we've got the amount from the Levelling Up Fund, we've got the amount from us. I'm just wondering, are we not contributing any money towards this, please? And if not, why not?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Farr. So, Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Farr. Yeah, what you're going to see in 8.3 on the report is we've had an award of 17.998 million from LUF. We have to match fund as a council 10%, so we've got just under 2 million, which is currently in the capital programme for us to match fund. What I should say here, though, is that we are trying to find that money from external sources. So we are looking at things like the National Lottery Heritage. We're looking if there's any grants available from Welsh Government and others, so we don't have to spend that 2 million. We have to have it protected in the capital programme as a condition of the grant, but certainly we will be looking to match fund that. With regard to Arwen, at this stage they haven't contributed to the actual redevelopment, but they will be funding some of the fit out and fixtures and fittings that go into the building. So as we get closer into the project, and we'll be able to come back with you, very similar to the situation in MyState Town Hall. We've built the building, but they're paying for the fixtures and fittings and everything inside, fit out the bars and cafes, etc. And that will be the same situation here. So I will be able to advise you more about that, but this is just purely the construction budget. So thank you.
you for that. I think that's a reasonable question, and it's not insignificant, those costs of fit out, is it? It's possibly hundreds of thousands of pounds, or is hundreds of thousands of pounds, and that is how how Arwen has contributed to Myseley Town Hall project, is by taking on the responsibility for that fit out. On that point around financial contributions, it is a commitment to this authority, and I think it's very important that we continue. And I know officers are all the time exploring opportunities for additional funding contributions from other partners, because at the moment we only have the contribution, which of course we welcome, from UK government. But I would like to make it a recommendation of Cabinet today that we continue to, a formal recommendation that we continue to explore the alternative funding opportunities for the project, because that will help mitigate some of the risk that there is in the project. Although, again, today demonstrates for me that we are managing that risk as carefully as we can at this stage, by already considering the design and making proposed changes to the design, but also by ensuring that we have a complete strip out of the building at this stage to try and identify any unknowns that would have been impossible to identify when the building was still in operation. So in addition to that, the other risk for us, though it is a risk that hundreds of projects potentially across the UK face, is just around that commitment from UK government that the funding that has been identified and is committed to this project can be spent over a longer timescale. I know officers have been very busy liaising with civil servants, UK government officials, but we haven't had that in black and white yet. And it's very important we get that in black and white. So a second additional recommendation I wanted to make, Mondran Officer, is that we continue to seek confirmation in writing from UK government that the funding available can be spent over that longer time scale, because we know that that is essential to delivering this project, that we are able to spend that funding up until March 2026. Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm quite happy to have that. I think the recommendation could be shaped in a more definitive way, in that we wouldn't sign any construction contract going forward until we had that confirmation, because I don't think we can go into any contract, Leader, unless we know that we can be assured of that past that date. So I would be happy to do that. Thank you.
I'm looking to colleagues, and I think, given the position we're in as an authority at the moment, I think that's a very sensible resolution that we could make today. And of course, we'll continue those efforts with UK government. It's one of the biggest amounts. It's the biggest amount we've had from UK government, certainly in my time here as a member of this authority. So something we can be proud of, but we do need that confirmation that the funding can be spent over a longer period. Is everyone happy with those two amendments, two additional amendments to the recommendation, Chair? Yeah. Okay. In which case, we will move on to the next report. I'm just noting that Councillor Good has had to leave the meeting for other council business, and I think Councillor Spanzik is having to leave as well. So we are still current, and we'll continue with the meeting, of course, and we will move on to the next report from the Corporate Director for Communities, and that's on the initial resource approach to the Cardiff Capital Region Strategic Development Plan. So back to Janine for her fourth report today. Janine, please.
Oh, thank you, Leader. Yes, hopefully this is good news for us as an authority, and recognises our some of the fantastic work that's gone on in our planning department. So the purpose of this report is to delegate authority to the Strategic Planning and Transportation Manager to act as the Corporate Joint Committee liaison officer in regard to spatial planning for the Cardiff Capital Region. So put simply, Leader, what this report is about is that the Cardiff Capital Region has now moved into a Corporate Joint Committee. And as part of a Corporate Joint Committee, it has a number of responsibilities. It is to promote economic well-being, spatial planning and regional transport planning. Now, the distinction I will make here is that it's a strategy duty of ourselves as a local authority to prepare a local development plan. And as we know, earlier on this year, we had our local development plan, brand new LDP approved by the council, and that's in place. Now, another important part of some of the regulations is that these new corporate joint committees have to produce a strategic development plan. And that was part of the Town and Country Planning Strategic Development Plan Regulations 2021. Now, what we have been asked by the region is whether, because we are the local authority who has now got a brand new LDP in place, and we are lucky in that I have very many resource problems across the directorate. We've discussed, haven't we, numerous times. But within my strategic planning department, I have a full team of officers, luckily a very, very capable team. And they've been asked whether Richard Mathams, who's my lead on the LDP, could do some work for and on behalf of the region to prepare the delivery agreement for the strategic development plan. Now, like I said, this is real kudos for both Bridgend and for the professional and experience of that planning officer and the team there. So what I would say is in section 3.2 of this report, it sets out it'll be a role on a temporary basis. It'll have a remit for preparing the development agreement, developing reports, relaying information regionally, liaising with Welsh Local Government Association and other CJCs on collaboration, and then presenting these reports back to the CJC board and to Welsh Government. Now, the position will function on a task-based approach. It won't have any adverse effects on his role within this authority. There is capacity to do this work, and the Corporate Joint Committee will reimburse us at Bridgend at his standard hourly rate. So please may I take you to the recommendations in section 9 of this report, Leader, to recommend that we can allow Richard Mathams, my Strategic Planning and Transport Manager, to fulfil this role. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Councillor Spanzik is first, then the Deputy Leader, then Councillor Bundle. Councillor Spanzik, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Janine, for the report. And it's so pleasing to hear such a report that we held in high regard with the new Corporate Joint Committee, with one of the best, if not the best, strategic planning teams in Wales. So I'm happy to move the recommendations and it just puts us in the right place for the future sort of strategic planning in the Cardiff City region area. So move the report. Very happy. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spanzik. I just want to clarify the point you make. It is the best in Wales. Deputy Leader is next, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. Thank you very much, Janine. My only query is what work is currently done by this officer, and how will it impact on council business? Now, you referred to your team being fully staffed, but that doesn't tell me the impact on the rest of council services and the impact that will have, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Janine, please.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. And it's a very important question, actually. So Richard's current role is he heads up the strategic planning and transportation team. His main role to date has been the implementation of the LDP and to get that into place into Bridgend, which they have done. Now, there's a significant amount of work that still needs to be done in terms of supplementary planning guidance and the rest in order to embed our LDP, and that is work that's undertaken on the team. But we do feel at this stage, given our position in the region as the only one to have an LDP in place, we do feel at this stage we have the capacity with Richard to undertake this task-based work. We don't think it's going to be too onerous. It shouldn't impact on the rest of the strategic planning team. May I say, though, this isn't the development control team. That's a completely different team that sits under Rodri Davis. This is just strategic planning. So at this stage, Deputy Leader, I think it will be of benefit to us as opposed to detriment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Janine. Yeah, do you want to come back in, Deputy Leader?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much for your response, Janine. Just a second query from me. It says the CJC will provide reimbursement to Bridgend County Borough Council at its standard hourly rate, with on costs or without, please, because that's a significant implication for us as council. And are you also backfilling his post?
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. If it wasn't with on costs, it's good to be with on costs now.
I think I might ask for on costs if I haven't already asked for them, because you are right. That is expensive. At this stage, we're not proposing to backfill the post, but should we need to, we will. So at this moment, the work that's in this first tranche, we don't think we need to backfill. But if this does gather momentum and we are seen as the lead for this, we certainly will have to look at a larger team, a bigger team, if this becomes a more permanent arrangement. Yeah, thank you.
And could you then advise us as whether it's with on costs or not following the meeting and external to this, please? Because I think it's important.
Absolutely, I will. I don't know the answer now, but I will. Actually, I think we'll probably insist that it is. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader and Janine. And this is a feather in the cap, and it's a reflection of the quality of the individual. Actually, there's 10 local authorities. He's a first-class officer, and we're also lucky to have within that. It's a small team, but it is a team. But we have a very able and effective rising star in the team leader, the strategic planning policy officer, Adam Provost. So he is, I'm sure, able to step up and assist in some of the duties that the post holder would have undertaken, and be supported by the group manager in that work as well. Okay. Is that a legacy?
Yes, I'm just happy to second the report.
Yeah, okay. And is everyone in agreement, please? Thank you, colleagues. We will now move on to the next report from the Corporate Director for Communities, report number 5, and that is on proposed allocations under the Town and Community Council Capital Grant Scheme for 2024 to 2025. Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This is a really nice report to be able to bring in front of you, Leader, because it shows our investment in our local communities and our town and community councils, working with them clearly. So the purpose of the report today is to seek your approval to allocate capital funding to town and community councils to develop projects in line with the recommendations contained within the report for the capital grant schemes for 24-25. So in short, Leader, we had a desire last time we came to you as a cabinet to try and align these town and community council capital grants with our community asset transfer scheme, the CAT scheme, and our decarbonisation agenda in the council. That's what we wanted to do with that. Now, BCBC has £50,000 allocated to its fund for this year, 24-25, but we also have money carried forward from previous years. So the amount that we had available in total was £219,000. Now, town and community councils were made aware of this, and they were asked to apply for the grant scheme. The grant closed on the 29th of February of this year, and we've had 5 applications in. Now, the applications are set out in Table 1 of the report at Section 3.4. The funding applications and the support and information were assessed by a funding panel, and the members of the funding panel are set out there. The Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Head of Community Services, Group Managers, CAT Officer, Finance Officers and Governance and Compliance Officer. What I would say here, Leader, if I may, make very clear that the Cabinet Member for Climate Change did not declared an interest and did not make any decisions on the reference D, the grant request for Brackla, as he is a ward member in that area. So he wasn't involved in that piece itself. But after the assessment, we decided to approve 3 schemes, in particular, Coty Hire 2 in the Garrow Valley and in Brackla itself. So we've only allocated 38,000 at this point, Leader, but it is proposed that our council CAT officers, community asset transfer officers, engages with those town and community councils whose funding application has been unsuccessful, because we understand it's disappointing, so that appropriate support can be provided, so new proposals can come in and maybe have better alignment for the fund for the future. So if I could take you to the recommendations in section 9, but what I would like to say, Leader, is that we have quite a bit of this fund still available. And we'd like to open another round of the fund. We've got £181,000 of the fund still available. And so we are going to open another round with a closing date of the 31st of August this year, 2024. And we should be able to publicise some information on that shortly. And what we want to do is to work with those who had an application refused in this round to try and get those applications over the line. So take you to recommendations in 9, please.
Thank you very much, Janine. Councillor Spanzik, then the Deputy Leader, then Councillor Farr. Councillor Spanzik, please.
Okay. Thank you, Leader. And in case I forget, following this report, I will need to leave for another commitment once conclusion of this report. This is a great opportunity. This is what we've been talking about for years, is working in partnership with town and community councils. And I was, as part of the panel, disappointed perhaps the limited number of applications. So hopefully with the opportunity, if we agree today to go out for a second batch, we can encourage more town and community councils to take part and perhaps help them put the sort of bids together and provide some advice. Because of the 5 bids, all 5 in some ways, well, they're all valid and all could have been, could be possible projects in the future, but there was particular disappointment in the County Hire 1 creating a toddler infant play area, which is a great idea, but it lacked any accessibility or inclusivity for disabled children. The very thing that we've been talking about for a long time in Bridgend County Borough, in what we're doing with the play areas, the version programme we're doing. So hopefully, the County Hire Community Council can come back and revise that bid and make it more accessible for all abilities. And that could be a good scheme for that site. And the same applies in a way then to St Bride's Minor Community Council, creating a multi-games area. A great idea, but there hasn't been any discussion with the County Borough about the land adjacent to Sarn Community Centre. The design, I'm not sure if there's a specification with design, because the cost of £52,000 these days for a full-blown multi-use games area is probably half the realistic cost. So it needs some more help, advice, guidance, perhaps to the town and community councils to put together the bids and make sure that it's a comprehensive bid before it comes before the panel to make it more successful. Because as the director said, there's 180,000 still there. So if we agree today to go to another round, we can encourage, and maybe through the town and community council forum, have a special session to make sure we get quality bids submitted by all town and community councils where appropriate, and spend that money in partnership with our town and community councils. So I'd like to move the recommendations 9.1, 9.2 of the report, Leader.
Thank you for that, Spanzik. I will bring in the Deputy Leader next, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Janine. It's really nice to hear that there's some good news in our communities for a change, because they're always best placed to resolve any concerns or issues that they may have. I do have a question for you, but I am happy to second, and that is the timeline for funding bids, please, because I think that's really important for our residents to understand that position. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Janine, please, I will bring you in. to respond.
Apologies, Leader. I was just swallowing a piece of chocolate very quickly. We needed it after the waste report. Yes, we would like to open another round of funding, definitely later this year. And we've decided the closing date of it is the 31st of August, the next round of funding. So what I will do after this meeting is speak to the team, Yair and the team, and Guy, and get that communication out to the town and community councils and explain. Then we can start having those conversations and then start to shape up those bids. Because these things do need a bit of shaping up, and they do need some assistance, and we're more than happy to do that. And then hopefully we can get quite a few more bids in, and hopefully even assist those that didn't get the bids this time around. Maybe get a more successful application, and then by the tail end of August, hopefully come back to you in maybe September or October to approve some more monies for some more bids. So it will. I think we've agreed the closing date will be the back end of the summer, the 31st of August. But I'm hoping to get some more information out so we can start that dialogue early. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Leader. A couple of quick questions from me, Janine. How many times can a town council apply? Can they apply more than once or twice a year? That's one. Do you think it could be the actual criteria that's stopping the town councils from applying for this funding? Is the criteria shared with the town council? The last question for me, is this funding ring-fenced for town council only, or can it be used for other projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Some questions there?
Yes,
please.
Thank you. Yeah, when we discussed this scheme with the town and community councils, the criteria is in there, Councillor Farr, so they do understand. However, the team and Guy Smith are there to help them interpret it, because sometimes it's not always that easy. What does net zero mean? So it is important for us to understand that, and we'll work with town and community councils. The money isn't ring-fenced; it's a capital allocation. And it is in place. It isn't at this stage ring-fenced. However, it is in the capital programme. So, in theory, if you wanted to change that designation, you could via council. And then the third question was about changing the criteria. Well, I think what might be prudent to do, if you were comfortable, Cabinet, is we'll see how this next round of funding goes. We'll see if we can work with town and community councils to get some funding over the line. Can you apply more than once? Well, in theory, there's nothing stopping you. But what we would like to do is to encourage all town and community councils to put a bid in. It would be really nice to spread the benefit of this throughout our borough, rather than in a couple of areas. We would really like to see the benefits throughout all. But we would encourage town and community councils to start that dialogue early with us, really, so we can help them put a bid together. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Janine. So there's that offer there, isn't it, to work closely with town and community councils, and I think this is a very good example of close and successful partnership. I'm particularly pleased to see the initiative to refocus Park Callan as a green initiative hub. I know how popular that is in not just in the Gower Valley but across the county borough. It's a beautiful part of the county borough. It's one of the backdrops we use on Teams, isn't it? The Gower Valley, and we know that actually it can attract visitors from beyond the county borough. And I'm also pleased to see that investment in trees. I'm sure in the right tree in the right place, aren't they? In Brackler, Councillor Spanzik and last and certainly not least, investment in all-weather surface at Coity Pay Park, again with the community council, because we know there's a growing demand, isn't there, for all-weather surfaces, and they're really important to enable people to play sports all year round. So recommendations have been moved and seconded. Everyone in agreement? Thank you, colleagues. And we can give you a short break, Janine, and we'll now move on to the next report, which is a report of the Corporate Director for Education, Early Years and Young People. So it's a new title. I hope I've got it right, Lindsay. And this report is on the school modernisation programme project at Bryn Tiryon Comprehensive School in the 4 classroom. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. So for the purpose of recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey, Corporate Director of Education, Early Years and Young People. This report seeks Cabinet approval for the following recommendations to be made to Council to via £141,000 of capital budgets detailed in the report for the purpose of active travel and highway improvements associated with the delivery of a 4 classroom block at Bryn Tiryon Comprehensive School, and include this as a scheme in the capital programme. Cabinet members will be aware that the availability of school places at Bryn Tiryon Comprehensive School is an issue, as the school is currently operating at capacity. In addition, there are a number of housing developments within the school's catchment area that have been or are in the process of being built. Members will also be aware that a scheme for additional accommodation at Bryn Tiryon Comprehensive School, which is supported by Section 106 funding, is included in the approved capital programme, and the construction element of the programme is currently subject to a tender process. Construction of the additional accommodation at Bryn Tiryon Comprehensive School is anticipated to be completed by January 2025, with the building being available for occupation in February 2025. Plan approval for the teaching block stipulated that active travel and highway improvements need to be implemented in permanent materials before the accommodation is brought into beneficial use. The estimated cost of the scheme, which includes works and professional fees, is calculated at £121,000. As noted in the report, active travel and highway improvement grant funding opportunities were identified, and the Communities Directorate submitted a funding bid to Welsh Government, which included the improvements identified in the planning conditions as part of a wider bid in respect to the Bryn Tiryon area. However, Leader, officers have now advised that the improvements associated with the scheme cannot be incorporated into the wider active travel programme in the Bryn Tiryon area during this financial year. Notwithstanding this, as active travel and highway improvements are a planning condition, the local authority will need to progress these works so the teaching block can be brought into beneficial use. Members will be aware that there are a number of other capital schemes within the school modernisation programme. Technical officers have advised that no further expenditure is anticipated on the 3 projects as captured at paragraph 3.3 of the report. Therefore, there's an option to repurpose school modernisation budgets to address the active travel and highway improvements required in the Bryn Tiryon area, obviously subject to council approval. Active travel and highway improvements consist of a number of improvements such as dropped curbs and signage have been conditioned through the planning process, and technical officers are advised that a budget of £121,000 for works professional fees and an allowance for inflation is required to deliver active travel and highway improvements related to this scheme. The proposed environment of uncommitted school modernisation budget of £141,000, as detailed in paragraph 3.3 of this report, is considered sufficient to meet the anticipated cost of these improvements, along with a contingency sum of £20,000. Therefore, Leader, I take it the recommendations of paragraph 9.
Thank you very much for that summary of the report, Lindsay. Councillor Blundell, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. First of all, thank you, Lindsay, for the report. Can I just double check on the figures that you've given us, that 120? I'm glad that we put in the contingency, because as we've seen with most projects, even the most minor one, we've seen them jump up in price just overnight. So I'm glad that we've got that that little bit of contingency there. Where I know it says in the report which schemes the money has come from, but those schemes, are they now completed and this money is left over? Are we taking money from schemes and this could leave those schemes at a detriment and may not be able to complete? That's my first question. And you mentioned in your report about the wider active travel scheme, and I know that something myself and the other local members have spoken about. I'm not asking a deliberate, I'm just saying, could local members have a members briefing with Janine and the officers to talk about where we are with the scheme? As you say, it's not being brought into this financial year, but just so we can have an update going forward, so we can alert residents, because I know it's been a number one concern with residents when I speak to them on Merlin Crescent. So just the first question to Lindsay, and then just the offer of a members briefing for all local members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blundell. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Button, for the question. I think it's an important one. Yes, this is existing funding. It relates to 3 schemes in paragraph 3 of the report. It relates to the valleys, for the gateway to the valleys, and this is the project name for Coleg Cymunedol at Erwin before the school was named, and the funding is left over from the original budget. It's also from the Garrow Valley Primary Highways work, and again, that was the project name for Betos and Ysgol Gynradd Calon y Cymoedd. So it was associated with works to do with highways there. And finally, also the money that's residual from the Mynydd Cymfig Primary School scheme. So again, no additional funding has been asked, this current funding within the project. With regard to the second point, absolutely more than happy to work with Janine and provide a briefing for all members.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Janine.
Yeah, I think that briefing will be helpful for local members. I know this is also the subject of a report to full council tomorrow, because it requires, obviously, if it goes ahead, it requires a change to the capital programme. Councillor Farr is next, please.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to second the report. I think Councillor, you didn't move it. Okay, I'm happy to move the report. Couple of questions for me, Lindsay. I mean, obviously we're extending the school because there's a demand. Yeah. But Welsh Government have said no for us to have some funding towards the active travel and things, which surely comes under the education. So we can't go back to the Welsh Government and say, look, the reason we're doing this expanding because there's a need for this.
Lindsay, please.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Farr. No, because it's outside the curtilage of the school building, the funding from Welsh Government will only be for the school building in its immediate grounds, unfortunately.
And I know that's something we've raised previously with successive ministers, but they're quite clear that they will only fund school modernisation projects. They will only fund work on site within the curtilage of the school. But you're right to flag it, because actually, I don't think I've seen a school project that doesn't require works off-site, highway works. They are essential and integral, and they are always a requirement of planning, because if you are expanding a school or building a new school, inevitably that will result in changes to travel to that school. And even when it's an adaptation, sometimes there'll be a requirement around additional requirements placed on that school, because a school's been there for a long time and it doesn't meet the standards around active travel and highway safety. So it does mean that cost is something that we have to bear as a local authority. Do you want to come back in? I can see your hands on the trigger.
On the trigger. I'm just wondering, because we have a new education minister, is it worth writing and kind of a begging letter? No?
I think the wider point around school modernisation, the costs of a school modernisation programme, because they are significant. I think we've set aside millions of pounds, haven't we, for a £68 million school modernisation programme. We've had to set aside a multi-million pound figure for highways works. I can see the Councillor Brundle wants to come in, so I'll bring him in, and then I'll bring you in, Deputy Leader.
Yes, thank you, Lee, and thank you, Councillor Farr. Just to let you know, myself and the director of his new title, will be meeting with the new Cabinet Secretary for Education with our 22 other colleagues next week, I think it is now. So it is on our agenda to raise about school modernisation with her, and we can report back to CCMB when we come back. Thank you.
And I think what we can do is that we can make the point that where there is already some funding in place, so we did secure this the active travel route, actually there can be double benefit, can't there, to the Welsh Government funding stream if it's not only used for wider active travel by everyone, because these improvements would be used by everyone, not just by school pupils and school staff. In fact, they'd probably be used more by other people if you looked at the total usage than they would be just by school pupils. And because of that wider benefit, then they should be considered at the very least, or given perhaps some weighting within the assessment of active travel routes. And I'll now bring in the Deputy Leader, who's been waiting very patiently.
Which is unlike me, Leader, isn't it? Just to note, I've got a personal interest as Chair of Governors. I am an LEA Governor at Mynydd Cynfig School, so I do need to declare a personal interest. It's not prejudicial, and I'm happy to second the report at this point. Thanks very much, Leader.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just finally from me, I think it would be helpful, there's not detailed within the report, if the Director for Education, Early Years and Young People could just summarise the improvements that are being proposed. I know that obviously they're a requirement, so they would have been through that process, but I think it would be useful for members to understand some of the basic details, certainly of the planned improvements. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks for the opportunity. It is important. So generally, the work's going to include some drop curbs, tactile paving, signage, and a new footway. The work will predominantly take place at HLT Mine, Barnes Avenue, HLT Cribor, and Islington Road.
That was a very useful summary. Thank you, Lindsay. So recommendations been moved, seconded. Is everyone in agreement? Yes, thank you very much, colleagues. And of course, it will now be considered by full council tomorrow. And we will now receive a report of the Chief Executive, and that is on the corporate plan and the delivery plan for 2024 to 2025. And I can see that we have been joined by our Policy and Public Affairs Manager. So over to you, please, Alex, and of course, a very warm welcome. Alex, please.
Thank you. I'm Alex Rowland, the Corporate Policy and Performance Manager. You have in front of you a draft updated corporate delivery plan for 2024-25. We agreed our overarching 5-year corporate plan here last March and developed a 1-year delivery plan with commitments and PIs to support it. Since the budget for the year ahead was agreed at the end of February, we've been focused on its implications on the delivery plan and the commitments and PIs that we measure through our quarterly performance monitoring. Over the past few months, Directorate management teams have been through the delivery plan, looking at what is likely to be affordable in the coming year. CMB and heads of service then met on the 31st of January to discuss changes to the plan, activities and commitments that are now unfunded and PIs that will no longer be a priority, as well as what remains and how that stacks up against the 5-year corporate plan. This has been scrutinised by the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, starting at their January meeting and then again at their March meeting. The committee also looked at the potential for additional areas and considered criticisms from Audit Wales about the lack of service user perspectives data in our delivery plan. COSC have also agreed to work with the performance team this quarter to develop a small suite of service user perspectives indicators for the delivery plan. So the draft in front of you is somewhat pared down from the year before, made up of 7 wellbeing objectives with 42 aims, supported by 84 commitments and 88 performance indicators. But it still focuses on the priorities in the corporate plan and provides a sensible framework for reviewing and assessing performance in the year ahead. So I'll take you to recommendations in paragraph 9.
Thank you for that, Alex. I was particularly pleased to see the inclusion of additional performance indicators around domestic abuse and how we support the victims of domestic abuse. So it's crucial that we have that. There is such an important and growing service for the authority. Also, I noticed in the equality impact assessment, there was a reference to the impact on pregnant women and maternity, the impact is done as no impact. I would suggest that because of the rollout of the Flying Start scheme, which is particularly targeted at pregnant women and the support that they can provide from pregnancy through to early years, and a major expansion of that in the Garw, the Ogmore Valley, in Kemfic Hill, Pyle, Canelli and Porthcawl, that there is a beneficial impact of that. So I would suggest a tweak into that. I couldn't, when I looked at the plan, identify any actions that we are taking that are specifically disadvantageous to that a group, and therefore I think that change is justified in it, and importantly reflects the difference that Flying Start makes to parents, particularly obviously mums and as well as dads and their children. I can see that Councillor Farr wants to come in, so I will bring in Councillor Farr, and then I'll return with another point. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to move the report. And again, I think it's really good that the way that the plan is written out is really easy read, which I really value. I'm just wondering, we've got our aims, we've got our performance indicator and the commitment, but we haven't got how we're doing against those. I was looking at the scrutiny 2 committee papers yesterday, and they had the traffic light, where we're at, because I've noticed they're very similar to what's in there. So is it possible to add another box just to see where we're at, if possible? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Alex, please.
Yeah, once that high-level overarching corporate plan delivery plan is agreed, we'll move on to completing or updating directorate business plans, and that includes setting targets for each of the PIs and milestones for each of the commitments. So I think our aim is for this to be complete before the end of the first quarter, and I think we're hoping by the end of May.
And then we will have those traffic lights next to it to say where we're at with those aims. And great, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Farr. It's an important, very important part of the process. The only other point or suggestion I was going to make, and perhaps is for a future iteration, because I know obviously it's a plan that will continue to evolve, won't it? Is just on performance indicators where we protect our most vulnerable. I know there's a strand of work that's integral to our financial planning, as well as our the development of people's independence. There's a piece of work in social services called right sizing, where we look at care packages to reduce the cost while still supporting people. And I think it would be helpful if there was a performance indicator and a commitment around that, because it certainly does protect our most vulnerable and also assists in maintaining people's independence as well. So we could look to include that in addition. I can't see that anyone else wants to come in, so Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I just thought everybody's heard enough from me today. I'm really looking forward to seeing the first iteration with some data attached to this. I think it's really important, and I think that it'll give us a better ability to challenge in scrutiny, is what I want to say. I'm more than happy to second the report. Can I thank you and your team, Alex? You're doing a cracking job on this. We do need to evidence where we do things well in the council, because quite often what we hear about is all the negative. It gets all the press. Thanks very much, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. And certainly support that, Deputy Leader. So recommendations have been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement, subject to those tweaks to the plan around the quality impact assessment, the inclusion of an additional performance indicator when appropriate to do so. Okay, thank you both, and we will now move on to the proposed amendment to the scheme of delegation of function, and that is a report of the Chief Officer for Legal, Regulatory, HR and Corporate Policy, and the Monitoring Officer as well. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Leader. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Kelly Watson, the Monitoring Officer. The purpose of the report today is to seek Cabinet approval to amend the scheme of delegation of functions, and this is in relation to a Cabinet function. At present, paragraph 6.19 of the scheme of delegation makes provision for the making of orders under the legislation as set out in paragraph 2.1 of your report. However, an order isn't needed to establish, alter or remove a pedestrian crossing, and it's therefore proposed to include a new paragraph, which you can find the word in paragraph 3.1 of your report. This will be a delegation to make arrangements for the establishment, alteration and removal of pedestrian crossing facilities in accordance with the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1980. Therefore, take you to the recommendation of paragraph 9.
Thank you, Kelly. I certainly welcome this, as it streamlines the process, doesn't it? And makes the process quicker. So can I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Thank you, Deputy Leader. Oh, you wanted to come in? I thought it was a legacy, and I do apologise. Deputy Leader.
Thanks very much. I'm more than happy to propose the amendment. I think the question that I have is, should anything be considered contentious about some of the plans that we wish to make? Would we ensure that that decision is brought back to Cabinet rather than a delegated function, please? Thanks very much.
Deputy Leader. Kelly, please.
This is only to deal with the alteration, the removing or the establishment. Obviously, there is a process behind that Janine is probably better placed to explain the process, but it will go through that process, and then, you know, once it's had the consultation with the people you need to consult with, the final decision is via a delegated power. If there are queries during the consultation stage, then Janine's team will deal with them in the usual way.
I want to come back, don't you?
I do, yes. Because I'm aware that one of the questions we will be asked at Community Council later is what we are doing about the state of the roads in a specific location. And part of that is around road traffic crossings. And if we're saying that that wouldn't even come to us now for any decision making, especially considering officers have told them no already, I would imagine that part of your consultation will be from community councils, because we're not listening to the community about where we want them sited. And I also appreciate that there isn't the capacity. We've had a really full and a good response from traffic management officers. What I would say is the community council are not accepting of that advice or guidance, and they're really unhappy with it, and they keep quoting safety at us of residents. So I'm just putting that on the record here. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. I'll bring the Corporate Director for Communities in, Janine, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Deputy. I think this Cabinet report is about process, really. It's not about the need for and determining the need for. That's a very different process. And a lot of that, you are right, is based on safety records, where we can put crossings. And the other thing about that as well is dependent on the funding that we have to enable to do the work. So the report that Kelly has will hopefully make the process quicker, so we don't have to go through the full TRO, which would be of benefit. It doesn't change the front end, where we talk to you, talk to the communities, understand it, design it, and then find funding. That won't change. It just makes the process of getting it in quicker, which is actually would benefit us all, really. If we get a decision and we want to do one and we get it in quicker, then that's good for community safety all about. What it doesn't do, though, I'm afraid, Councillor Gebbie, is identify any more funding to do some of those crossings that we know the community would like, which we would like too. We don't have the funding. It doesn't change that. It just makes the process quicker. So hopefully that will explain. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Janine. And then we've got Councillor Farr, please.
Happy to second the report, Leader. I had the same reservation as the deputy, but I feel assured by Janine saying that she would talk to us. I know we're fighting for a crossing in Porthcawl, Newton Nottage Row, so I'm pleased to hear that Janine will talk to us before making any decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr. So, Kelly, please.
Also, just to confirm for members that the current process, so 6.19 of the scheme of delegation, that is an officer delegation. So at the moment, these don't come to Cabinet anyway at the moment.
Okay, so they don't currently come. So this is not about changing a power from it being a member decision to being an officer decision. It's already an officer decision. But of course, as with any proposed traffic safety or road safety initiative, there's normally close engagement with local members, because local members are normally calling and asking for those improvements. But it doesn't necessarily follow through this part of the process. This is about the decision-making process. There's also the engagement and consultation, which will still need to take place, obviously. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Have been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement, please? Yes? Thank you, colleagues. In which case, we will move on to the final report on today's agenda. But of course, before we do that, I would add that there are no urgent items that have been brought to our attention, and given that it's 20 to 7, that's probably a good job. We will therefore consider excluding the public in accordance with the relevant acts, and I will ask the monitoring officer to take us through that process, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm sure Cabinet are familiar with the test you need to apply now. My advice to Cabinet is the information contained in this report is commercially sensitive, and therefore it would be prejudicial to the parties to discuss that information in the public domain at this time. I ask you to consider the public interest test and determine that the keeping the information confidential at this stage outweighs the public interest in knowing of the information. Of course, as always, at the appropriate time, that information does become public and will be in the public domain at an appropriate time in the future.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm more than happy that it meets the public interest test, and I would recommend excluding the public at this point. Thanks very much.
Is everyone in support of that? Of course, it does make reference to a commercial organisation and our negotiations and discussions with that commercial organisation, and I therefore support it as well. If everyone's in agreement, then we will formally exclude the public. I'll just wait for committee section to confirm that